At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Welcome. Here's what you'll learn on tonight's program. More and more people are turning to AI chatbots like ChatGPT for moral advice, for solutions to ethical dilemmas, even help with their mental health. But should we trust the answers robots give us? Researchers have found that these AI systems have hidden biases. They often favor inaction, doing nothing, and they give inconsistent advice based on subtle differences from your input prompts. So what does that mean for you if you seek robot-guided wisdom? That is what we'll find out in 10 minutes' time. After that, we've all made bad decisions when we're stressed out. Rash decisions, risky decisions. If you are stressed out, you're more likely to do things like gamble. But why? Why do people do this? Scientists have cracked the key. So halfway through the hour, we'll tell you why you make riskier choices when you're stressed. That's just some of tonight's show, but let's dive in. And in governments attempting to control their people and how they eat news, we are joined by Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England. Tony, welcome in.
David, my friend, you've heard of fluoride in water. You've heard of chemtrails. Now, the British government, my friend, they want to fine supermarkets for encouraging the population to eat healthier.
Wait, fine them?
So they're going to fine supermarkets if they don't encourage basically the population to eat healthier food. So they're kind of governing the supermarkets to say, you must promote healthy eating, you must sell more healthy foods than crap foods. And if they don't, they're going to fine them.
Wait, how can they force how can you fine a supermarket based on consumer behavior?
Well, there you go. That's what they're doing. So the government, that's exactly it. It's basically there's a big issue, I guess, in most first world countries with obesity, right? And they call it mass-produced food and whatever. And yeah, if they don't meet, they're going to set them targets. No idea how, because it's all in the initial stages, and saying, I guess it's going to be like fresh fruit, fresh veg, not sort of products with additives and so on. And if they don't sell enough, they're going to find these huge supermarkets. And obviously they're in uproar, but it is so strange, right? Like how if you take it at face value, I think it's kind of interesting, right? But then if you, like you did, if you tell somebody that story, you go, well, how are they going to do that, right?
Yeah, that's like saying, hey, McDonald's, you got to put a salad on your menu. And by the way, if you don't sell enough of those salads, we are going to fine you. It's government overreach.
Well, there's that. And again, in a related story, this happened like 2 days ago. The government, and this isn't a law, this was a conversation with the head of policing in the UK and the government who supported it, was that they are going to police the air around you. Okay? Now, marijuana use in the UK is still illegal, still classed as a Class C drug. It's legal in small quantities, meaning they won't fine you. They'll just let you go on your way if you're caught with it. Anything in terms of dealing or distribution, obviously you'll get arrested and there's a problem. Right now, sure. Most of the world has got different thoughts. I know you've got thoughts on marijuana, but most areas in London, and I say most areas, you're walking through the streets, you can smell marijuana. Okay? And the government want to stop the smell, but not in line with the legality of the drug use.
I'm very confused.
Right, I'll repeat that again. Ready? For those listeners who don't understand, David's got this absolute look of confusion, which is what I had, and obviously people that listen to the article. They don't like the smell of marijuana. It makes people feel unsafe. That was the wording, unsafe because of the area. But they're not going to police the use of marijuana, just the smell.
Okay, so it makes absolutely no sense. So you're allowed to use it in small quantities. Maybe allowed isn't the right word, but you won't get arrested for it.
Allowed's not the right word, but it's tolerated. Tolerated, that's the word.
But if you create the smoke of it, then you can get in trouble. But you're allowed to use it, but you're not allowed to create smoke while using it.
Which you have to smoke it while using it. You can't eat it, I guess. I've never used marijuana.
I mean, I suppose you could eat it. People cook it into brownies and stuff.
Okay.
So they're promoting weed brownies is basically what you're saying. The UK government is promoting brownies, which is unhealthy, and they're going to fine the supermarkets. Okay, I'm getting confused here.
I mean, that would be amazing. But I don't know what it's like over there in the States. So most big restaurants have these huge vents, right? So when they cook, they don't, technically, they don't smell on the street. No, I'm being serious.
You need to create restaurant venting in your home in order to smoke marijuana?
So you have to have restaurant, and that's it. They say it's akin to that. And one of the television presenters was like, that's ridiculous. And the guy was deadly serious. This is like a high up police officer. He was deadly serious and said, no, well, you know, the smell of it, it's bad for the kids, which I get the smell of it. Because, but it opens up questions that they don't want to talk to the children about. Like, Daddy, what's that smell? No, it's not the homeless man in the corner. It's weed.
I understand that, but why not do it like smoking? Like in the US and in Canada, there are areas where you can't smoke even though it's outside because the cigarette smoke would bother people. I think like some university campuses.
Yes.
I think even patios and restaurants now in some places you can't smoke even though it's outside because it would bother people. Why don't they just make a list of places where you can't have marijuana smoke, like let's say maybe next to a school, and leave it at that?
Okay, but this is exactly the same. So even if you wanted to smoke weed, marijuana in the areas of smoking, unless somebody brought it up, it's fine. This is policing public space. So this is you walking through San Francisco, walking through Toronto, walking through areas, you know, residential areas, not necessarily commercial areas, but that being policed. So basically policing the air. Do you get that? So that's what I found fascinating. And I don't know, is that something that's come from the States? Is that something that's just here? What?
I don't know, but as someone with gastrointestinal issues lifelong, the idea of policing the air is basically criminalizing me.
Correct. And you would be, I mean, in the same characteristics as an armed robber, you know, a criminal, because you are flouting the law constantly after a dirty meal.
I thought you were going to use a different FL word. All right, bringing it back to the original story, the UK government fining supermarkets if they don't sell enough healthy food. What do Brits think of this?
Mate, it has not gone down well at all. 52% say, no, not having it, not happy at all. They're completely opposed to it.
Does this happen a lot where most of the people, the majority of the people in the UK don't like something and the government does it anyway? Because I feel like if so, that's the sign of a healthy democracy.
Me too, David. This is what the foundation it's built on, the people that opposed in the foundation, buried, you know, like the mob.
We voted for you. You do what you want, even though we don't want that. Is that
correct?
Wow.
I mean, it's only about 32% they said that they were actually in favor of it. It actually brings it back up to 100%.
If you're going to like regulate supermarkets' behavior, it's weird to find them based on what they sell. Like, oh, you can offer the unhealthy food, but now if you sell it in a lower proportion than the healthy food, you're in trouble. To me, a better way to do it is like regulate, I guess, what they're selling. But even then, that sounds like overreach. I don't know if there's a right answer here.
Exactly, which is why it's so interesting.
And if it's about advertising and marketing, shouldn't it be on the government's side to like advertise to healthy eating and not fine the supermarkets?
Correct, because who's going to prosper from this the most? Marketing and advertising agencies, right?
I guess.
Because they're the ones that are going to come along and say, well, you know what, whatever, TK Maxx, you're not selling enough apples. So, you know, you need us to promote apples, right?
Yeah, I just feel like doing it at that last possible point, like allowing the grocery stores to sell what people want, unhealthy food, but then fining them for selling it. I just feel like that's the wrong area of the unhealthy food life cycle with which to kind of regulate. I think it should happen somewhere else, and it should be the government's responsibility, not the supermarkets.
Where do you sit on like sort of the Darwinian method? If people want to eat themselves silly and smoke themselves silly and do stupid things, do you think the government should step in? Or do you think actually it's just up to us? What are you feeling?
kind of like with smoking, it should be, taxed. But at the end of the day, if people want to do unhealthy things and they get past the tax and they get past the barriers, you got to let them do it.
You kind of scrunched your face there. Now, I'm completely opposed the other way, and this is a topic for another day, but we'll talk about it because I think, no, let people do whatever they want, apart from the really illegal things.
Let the people do what they want, apart from the legal things. You heard it here first with Tony Five, foreign correspondent. Coming up next, more people are asking AI chatbots for advice on sticky moral situations. But new research shows these models have surprising blind spots. They favor you doing nothing, they say no too often. After the break, should we trust the robots with ethical dilemmas? I'm David Cooper, and this is The Last Show.
Member Week is here at Lowe's. Don't miss your chance to get up to 40% off hundreds of items like paint, faucets, vanities, doors, and more. Shop our exclusive deals happening in-store and online now through July 18th. Not a member? Join My Lowe's Pro Rewards for free today and get ready to save more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
The missing link between scientific journals and relationship counseling. The Last Show with David Cooper.
More and more people are turning to AI chatbots like ChatGPT for moral and ethical life advice. But should we trust the robot's answers? Researchers, one of them being our upcoming guest, have found that these AI systems have hidden biases, often favoring inaction and giving inconsistent advice. So what does that mean for you or someone who seeks robot-guided wisdom? Let's find out with Max Maier, an experimental psychology researcher at the University of College London. Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So why look into how AI models, large language models, things like ChatGPT make moral decisions? What sparked your curiosity here?
I had a background in moral psychology research, so looking at how humans make moral decisions. And now there are a lot of similarities in terms of the methods between humans and large language models. So basically, I applied some of the methods that we used to study how people make moral decision makings and look at language models. And of course, generalizing this to language models is quite important because people are increasingly relying on the advice of large language models when they're making moral decisions, and sometimes even language models can make moral decisions themselves.
So when you say people are relying on advice, would people enter in a pros and cons list of should I dump my boyfriend and why, and then rely on things like ChatGPT? I know it's a silly example, but are people really asking these questions of large language models?
Yes, so I think there's some work that shows that people increasingly do actually chat with large language models for more personal problems and personal questions. And there are even some tools, I think it's called Character AI, where you can have almost like a virtual friend to have sort of longer conversations with. So people are increasingly using that.
So when asked questions like this, and it might not be as dramatic as a breakup with a boyfriend, but should I quit my job because of the way my boss acted? I mean, the questions are endless, the kind of thing you might ask a psychologist or a psychiatrist. What are you finding that the AI models are saying when asked questions like this?
Yes, so basically, in our research, we confronted the models with basically these types of moral dilemmas and also everyday dilemmas. And we find that the specific phrasing of the question can play quite a big role. So, for example, if you ask, should I quit my job? It might say no. But then if you ask, should I stay in my job? Which is the same, just like a slight rewording, it might also say no. So that's what we call this yes-no bias, where they basically have a tendency to answer no. And we also compared that to humans, and humans don't show this type of bias. And that's quite important or interesting because when you ask people to evaluate how much they like the advice of language models, they actually like the advice quite a lot. So people might think the answer seems reasonable and go with the advice, even though it's flawed in a way that if you just change the wording of the question a little bit, you might actually have gotten the opposite advice.
I guess that means the system could be said to be chaotic, right? A small change of language or turning a question that would require a positive answer into a negative answer, even though it means the same things, a small change in the input could then give you very different output. Is that a good way to describe what these systems are like?
Yeah, I think it's basically sensitive to these very small changes in the input that don't change anything about the actual problem that you're seeking advice for.
And then this yes-no bias. Say more about that. As people, if a friend asks me, should I quit my job, I won't give them a yes-no answer. I'll give them a sort of, it's complicated, let's talk through this, I don't want to make any rash decision style answer. Whereas these large language models just prefer a kind of positive or negative answer.
I think that is a little bit of a separate issue. So basically, in the studies as we ran it, we we asked people to either answer with yes or no. So basically, if you were forced to decide, what advice would you give? If you take longer answers, that's sort of a little bit of a separate issue, where then it's not so straightforward anymore to say in which direction that is biased. But that is something that we're interested in looking into in future research, to sort of generate open responses and then code these open responses from language models.
Humans aren't perfect at giving moral advice. We have blind spots. Do you find these chatbots reflect our own mistakes that we make when giving moral and ethical advice, or are new ones introduced, or both?
Basically both. So I talked so far about this yes-no bias, and that we didn't find in humans, but was introduced by language models. Then there is another sort of phenomenon in human moral decisions that is called omission bias, which means whether something is an action or an inaction has quite a big effect. So as an example, one of the vignettes we had was, imagine you're in the Canadian Senate and you can decide whether to change the law to make medically assisted suicide legal. And then another version of that would be medically assisted suicide is currently illegal. You can change the law to make it legal. So basically two versions. It's currently legal, you can make it illegal, or it's going to illegal and you make it legal. And the outcome is the same, basically. It's going to be legal afterwards. But this, whether it's from action or inaction, that has quite a big effect. And this bias we find in humans, but we find it more strongly in language models than in humans. So here, the bias is amplified, whereas for the yes-no bias, a new type of bias was introduced.
Interesting. So AI models are more likely to advise you to take inaction, and that would really affect whether the advice would be like morally correct or morally incorrect.
Yes. And humans also do that, but for AI models, this is much stronger.
Are AI models, do they prefer more altruistic seeming advice that would seem to be the best outcome for everyone, even if it's naive and not actually the best outcome?
Yeah, so basically the types of dilemmas that I talked about so far, there I think it's not always so clear what is more altruistic, but it's more different ethical theories maybe conflict. Maybe if you're a utilitarian, you would be in favor of one action, so you think you should do what leads to the most happiness, whereas if you follow rules, you would do what the other option. But there's another issue, sort of social dilemmas, where it's often a trade-off between doing what's best for yourself versus doing what's best for others. And in those types of dilemmas, we find that the language models are actually a little bit more altruistic. So that is a sort of somewhat positive note on the language model advice. They seem to be more altruistic, even though they have these other biases, the yes, no, and the omission bias.
So a slight positive there. Taking a high-level view here, what does your research tell us about the risks of using AI for serious advice, for moral advice, whether it might be ethics, law, maybe mental health questions? Should people be more cautious based on what you're finding?
Yes, so I would say it's important to be more cautious and not uncritically rely on the advice of these language models. And basically, even so, the models might be good at giving advice that appears superficially compelling, because they're trained based on humans liking their answer. Their advice is actually subject to additional biases that human advice doesn't show.
Any recommendations for how I might approach using these things, or is the main one just don't?
One thing could be to try around with different phrasings of the question. For example, if you think, should I quit my job? Maybe you could ask in one session, hear like the pros and cons, should I quit my job? And then you open a new session and you turn the question around and you say, here are the pros and cons. Should I stay in my job? And see whether the advice is going to be consistent across these different ways of asking the question.
I advise people to use AI like I use flipping a coin. What I do is I flip a coin, heads I go to the store, tails I don't, and then I don't look at the result. And I ask myself, what was I really hoping to see? And then it doesn't even matter what the coin says. You know, if I didn't care, I'll just do what the coin says. If I did care, now I know that I care. It's a little trick to use like random chance to help me make a decision. I think people should be using AI with a grain of salt. Get the answer, but then just use it as one data point, and then maybe like don't just blindly listen to it would be my advice.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It can add an interesting perspective, but you shouldn't rely on it too strongly.
Max, thanks for chatting with me. I've enjoyed this. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you very much.
Max Maier is an experimental psychology researcher at the University College London. Up next, have you wondered why you make risky choices when you're all stressed out? From impulse shopping, gambling, to dicey life decisions, when you're stressed, it's not just poor luck that you decide things badly, it's brain science. So after the break, new research that explains why stress rewires your decision-making and what you can do about it.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Have you ever spotted McDonald's hot, crispy fries right as they're being scooped into the carton? And time just stands still. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
This is your nightly dose of chaos, confession, and questionable life choices. The last show with David Cooper.
We've all made bad decisions when we've been stressed out. Rash decisions, risky decisions. Well, a new study reveals there's a deeper reason why stress makes us more likely to take risks. It turns out stress changes how we weigh losses and gains, pros and cons, sometimes pushing us towards choices we might normally avoid. Let's learn how that happens with someone who worked on this research. He's a psychological science and neuroscience researcher at the University of Arkansas. His name is Dr. Grant Shields. Grant, welcome in, my friend.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I love that you studied this because we've all seen a friend in duress make not so great decisions. Is observing something like this in your life or in your studies what got you so curious about the topic in the first place?
Yeah, I actually really got onto this line of research, how stress influences higher cognitive processes that contribute to poor decisions as a result of working at a group home where I saw these youth often make decisions that they really regretted later, like breaking their own property when they were stressed. So I really kind of wanted to help resolve that, like help with that dynamic at a broad level by figuring out why it happens. That can then lead to some clinical interventions later.
I think the classic example that we all saw growing up was the unregulated friend punching through a wall when they were upset, and then like they're going to have to pay for that. A silly example, but I think one that illustrates what's going on here. Loss aversion. Why does it have such a strong grip on our decision making, especially under stress?
Yeah, so we don't like to lose money, to lose property, to lose things that we find valuable. In fact, this bias is so strong that it actually contributes to poor investment decision making. Some of the reasons why, say, like algorithmic trading oftentimes outperforms human trading is because we hold on to losers too frequently. That's the typical pattern of decision making, and usually it's quite adaptive. Under conditions of stress, though, we lose this aversion to losses. We're okay with making decisions that maybe might harm us currently or in the long run. So that dynamic is altered.
Tell me more about the study. Like, what exactly goes on when we're stressed and we make a decision versus when we're level-headed and we make a decision?
Yeah. So this study was really an attempt to understand some of the mechanisms underlying the effects of stress on risky decision making. We've known for a long time, I've taught in classes for years, that people make riskier decisions under stress, especially when taking those risks is not advantageous, when it's just not a good idea. But understanding why that occurs has been difficult to determine, at least in prior studies. So in this study, we wanted to kind of really leverage behavioral economics literature and apply kind of the entire model that's used to kind of best understand risky decision making in that literature to pick apart some of these component processes and see how stress affects them. So yeah, what we found is that stress is doing a lot of things to a lot of processes, and that kind of differs as a function of male and female participants, and kind of that high degree of heterogeneity coupled with differential effects on male and female participants could explain why other studies hadn't found kind of these mechanistic effects before.
So what are some of the mechanistic effects?
Yeah, so like we've already discussed, stress decreases loss aversion. It does so for both men and women, but it does so to a greater extent in men than in women. Stress also alters probability distortion. So the extent to which I see an unlikely outcome as actually potentially going to happen to me, that's kind of the standard probability distortion. I think I'm likely to win the lottery, so I buy a lottery ticket, even though realistically I'm not likely to win the lottery. Stress increases probability distortion in men, but it actually decreased probability distortion in women. Women were more accurate in their judgments of high or low likelihood outcomes. Stress also altered what's called utility curvature. That's basically risk seeking or aversion. So women in the study were more likely to seek out risks. They had less of kind of a tapering of the subjective value of money as the value increased. So usually we would love to win. Taking a risk to win $100 when the alternative is zero is a lot more appealing than taking a risk to win $200 when the alternative is 100, right? If I can have $100 in my pocket for sure, I might not take a 50-50 chance to win 200. But if it's zero, yeah, I'll take a 50-50 chance to win 100. So women under stress had less of a difference between the 0 and 100 and 100 and 200.
I want to talk about gambling a bit, because you'd think when someone's stressed, they'd be less willing to gamble. And then I was thinking, as you were speaking about this story about FedEx, where the owner, I think in the 90s or something, or maybe 80s, was about to go bankrupt. And so he gambled his last company money on blackjack, won, saved FedEx. I think it's a perfect example of someone under stress going to gamble when you think they wouldn't. I actually don't like this story. I think it sets a bad example for how we should conduct ourselves. But yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? That the more stressed we are, the more likely we are to take these risks that may have bad outcomes for us.
Yeah, an interesting kind of conjunction of results that I found. In a prior study, I actually found that when people are stressed out, they are better able to kind of determine what the objectively correct decision is when there is an objectively correct decision. Say when pieces of information, indicate that this is the ideal, value for a radio or something like that. So there's something else going on. It's not just that when people are stressed, they don't know what the right decision is. They might be fully aware that, making a risky decision is probably not the best idea, but they do it anyways, maybe because they're less loss averse, or maybe because, there's a change to utility curvature or things like that. Yeah, so I really want to follow up on that conjunction of results later. I couldn't tell you why the FedEx CEO gambled the last company money, but I could tell you that the literature supports that he would.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there any evolutionary expectations? I'm thinking about our distant ancestors, before we were people. Essentially the view of some, greater ape that it's better to risk it all than be eaten. Could that be an explanation for why we behave this way?
Yeah, it certainly could. It's very likely the case that, in evolutionary past, when we were in situations that would stress us out, if we didn't do something major, we would have ended up getting injured or some kind of infection or even worse, death. So yeah, maybe making decisions that appear unwise, appear to be a bit too risky when we're stressed is actually something that historically has been quite useful.
Is there any check we can take based on your research? When I say check, I mean like I'm faced with a risky decision. I am stressed right now. Should I be remembering anything from your research to help me get me through it?
That's it's a good question. I would say just being aware of that and maybe taking a day, waking up the next day, maybe being a bit less stressed before you make a decision is a good idea.
I mean, I love that through all your academic research, your advice is sleep on it, which is actually excellent advice. So thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
Grant, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dr. Grant Shields is a psychological science and neuroscience researcher at the University of Arkansas. Up next, Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, broadcasting's only mental health segment intended for a Thursday night that airs on a Wednesday. Here's what we'll cover. We often think of boundary violations as extremely dramatic, but many such violations happen very quietly, without bad intentions. There are common ways people cross emotional, social, and even personal boundaries without realizing it. So after the break, how to spot these moments before they damage your relationships or your peace of mind.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper?
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always the last show with David Cooper.
It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, and Gary Direnfeld is here, a social worker and therapist, and he is violating my boundaries, probably. Actually, maybe not. I just wanted to set this one up. Boundary violations. We often think of them as dramatic, but some happen quietly, even without bad intentions. There are common ways that people cross your emotional, your social, your personal boundaries often, sometimes without realizing it. So how do we spot these moments before they damage your marriage or just your own peace of mind? Gary, welcome, my friend.
There's a saying, if you can smell their breath, they're too close.
But what if they have halitosis?
Exactly. Boundary violations. Some of them, like you said, they're subtle. They sneak up on people and they don't realize when they've crossed them. And I'm reminded of the Seinfeld episodes with the close talkers. She's a close talker. And it's like, there you are. You're right in that person's space. That's a boundary violation.
I believe it was a dude in the show who was a close talker.
Okay, sorry. Yes. Yeah, you're right. But yes, there he is in your space and a quiet talker. So quiet, in your face, too close. These are boundary violations. Listen, you know what, David? There's going to be people listening in to this discussion, and then they're going to go, oh my goodness, that's me.
It's me. Yeah, we've all had these people that talk to you, and as they're leaning in, you kind of like slowly step back, and by the time you're at the end of the conversation, you're at the other side of the room because they've just slowly encroached on your personal space, and so you've slowly backed off. And I just feel like some people don't get it. Like, there's a buffer, like when you're standing in a big lineup or you're, in a packed room, you leave a little buffer, and not everyone does this.
Yeah. So if you're in that situation with someone who's like that, the question is, what do you do? Right? And I tell people it is not rude to say, excuse me, I need more space between us. So there's a saying, make what's covert, make what's hidden, make what isn't spoken overt, open, spoken about. And so I'll never counsel someone to be rude about this, but simply making clear where your boundaries are, that's not rude, that's informational. Okay? So, excuse me, I just need more space between the two of us. I'm not comfortable standing that close.
Perfect solution.
Yeah. And to the person who is standing close, they're probably oblivious.
What about the hugging? Because I feel like I'm not a hugger. Like, I was left on my own a lot as a kid. My parents didn't hug me very much. And to make matters worse, my sister, because I am not trying to brag here, but I was a cute, like 6-7-year-old. My sister smothered me. And so I was handled too much by my sister, not handled enough by my parents. As a result, as an adult, I don't really like to be hugged. And some people are huggers and they just go for it without asking.
I am a hugger, David.
I know, and you're the one. See, you're the one guilty of invading my personal space.
And I will give a kiss. I don't care, man or woman.
A kiss?
Oh, yeah. If I were to meet you...
It's not that kind of show, Gary.
In New York and say, oh my God, David, I'd give you a hug. I'd even give you a kiss. However...
This is a family show, Gary.
However, knowing your discomfort, I wouldn't, or I'd ask permission first. So I have so people are now listening in on this. Direnfeld, this great social worker, he crosses people's boundary and he's hugging everyone. No, I don't do that. I ask permission. I will say, can I give you a hug? And then it's up to you. And if you say no, I have no issue with that. Sometimes, David, what I'll do is I'll look at a person and I'll say, then I'll squeeze you with my eyes. And I squeeze my eye. Listen, I've posted, pictures of me giving my followers that kind of big hug by squeezing them with my eyes.
You're violating my boundaries over the internet, Gary. No, I'm kidding. Speaking of violating boundaries over the internet, this one's kind of an interesting one. Some people seem to... We all have friends like this, and it's like when you're on the freeway or the highway and you're driving and there's a car accident on the other side, and yet there's still a traffic jam on your side, and it's because everybody slows down to look, and you say to yourself, I'm not going to be a schmuck, I'm not going to contribute to this traffic jam that doesn't need to be here, I'm not going to slow down and look, and then as you drive by the accident on the other side of the street, you slow down and look.
Of course.
Because it's in your human nature. And we all have friends who overshare online.
Yes.
And I say to myself, I'm not going to read them airing their dirty laundry between them and their spouse, them and their kid, them and their family member, them and their friend online. But I always do read it because it's like that car accident on the other side of the road. I guess there's a certain irony of me, someone who overshares on my radio show, complaining about this. But I feel like there's a certain decorum on social media where it's like, don't shame your significant other or air the details of your messy breakup on your social media feed.
Honest to God, do not do that. There is so much oversharing on social media. And a lot of it comes from a place of anger, resentment, but not all of it. Sometimes it's hey, look at my kid, and there's a cute picture of your kid's butt, poking out while they're having a bath or something. Will your kid want that picture forever live on the internet for years to come? So to recognize not everything needs to go on social media. And there's a difference between telling your story and when that story involves someone else.
Yes.
So to respect privacy is a really, really important boundary. Listen, every now and again, I post on my Facebook page, be careful of what you post here. It is an open page. Anyone can read it, and I would never want it to come back to haunt you. So sometimes we have to remind people not to overshare.
I completely agree with that. And I really like what you said about sharing your story versus sharing other people's story.
Yes.
I've talked intimately on this show about my struggles with sobriety or mental health or depression. So has Tony 5, who's on the show every day.
Sure.
There are family members of mine, friends of mine, whose stories would be so juicy to tell on the radio.
Yeah.
I want to, but they haven't agreed to broadcast life detail. Like, I know what I'm doing ish. I mean, that's a strong way to say it. I know what I'm doing in the sense that I'm agreeing to do it is a good way to put that. Not in the sense that I'm a competent broadcaster, but like a family member, a cousin, they're not a public figure, you know?
When I used to do a lot of workshops, and people would ask me questions, I'd say, look, you're going to have an opportunity to ask me all sorts of questions, but some of you may feel uncomfortable asking a question because it might reveal something of yourself that you don't want revealed. So preface what you are going to say by saying, I have a friend. So you can distance yourself from the information you're sharing. You can make it less personal, and you can make it less personal about somebody that you know. You can share some information, hey, someone I know is going through X, Y, and Z, so that you are not revealing that person specifically.
In the early days of the internet, the acronym was SWIM. So if you went online and talked about, like, I don't know, doing cannabis or anything illegal on an online forum, you'd say, SWIM smoked some marijuana today. And it stands for someone who isn't me.
I never heard of that one. Swim did. Okay, I love that.
I mean, it's for vaguely illegal activity, which I would never endorse and have never done myself. But, it's one way to say it, like someone who isn't me or a friend. That way you're kind of like depersonalizing it.
I love that.
And I might do that, like if I know that if a family member heard their story shared, as long as it was anonymized, they wouldn't mind. I'll tell it like that. There are ways to communicate details in a public forum that protect people.
And all of these are boundaries. All of these are being respectful of what's mine versus what's yours.
We're talking about boundaries people don't realize that they can cross here with Gary Direnfeld. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday, and we'll continue with this in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
The show that makes you laugh, think, and occasionally uncomfortable. The Last Show with David Cooper.
It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. We're talking the boundaries that people can cross of others without realizing it. Gary, welcome back to the show.
Oh, those boundaries. They just sneak up on you. And you go to a place not realizing you're making someone else uncomfortable.
Gary, how much money do you make a year?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Exactly.
I feel like everyone has their own limit based on what kind of financial information they want to share about themselves. I'm really comfortable, when I was a renter, like talking about rents, because I think it's important people know like what everyone's paying in New York, how much it actually costs, like what it costs to struggle to afford an apartment, or maybe I live in this cheaper area and what kind of deal I got. To me, that's normal. But I won't just go up to people and start divulging details about like my rent and ask them questions about theirs without checking in on them first. Because questions like that, they don't make me uncomfortable. They can make other people highly uncomfortable. Like if they're struggling to meet ends meet, or maybe they got some inheritance from like a dead family member they don't like talking about. It could be a million different things. And so I think it's really important to know what everyone's comfort level is with money talk before you jump in there.
Yes. And, not everyone wants to divulge their income. And here's the thing. It's like there's a boundary even within families around that. I didn't know what my dad was earning or not earning. He wouldn't have been comfortable with me knowing. Meanwhile, My son knows explicitly what my income is, how much money I've got. And I know that of him as well. But outside the family, all of a sudden, those boundaries come down like iron gates. No one's going to get into that. So you can't assume that other people are comfortable talking about money if you are. And whenever you want to open up a conversation that may be uncomfortable, you always want to seek permission first. I don't know if you're comfortable talking about this. I am. Is this something, you're good with? And if so, if they give you permission, you can go there.
Sure.
I talk about, and I've posted about financial hardships that we have experienced over the course of our marriage and how we have managed them. I tend to be more open than a lot of people only because I'm using it as a learning experience for others.
Sure. And I, for whatever reason, like the idea that I would be judged or judge others based on their income and like their socioeconomic status is wild to me. Like I'd like to think, I'm sure I do in my implicit bias way. We all have a little bit of bias in us that we wish we didn't have.
Sure.
But like I would never judge or not be friends with someone if they were a billionaire or if they were, struggling to make their rent and they had $0 in their bank. But others feel judged and insecure and have grown up in situations where they were made fun of or whatever. And you have to be cognizant of that. Like people's insecurities around this stuff are there. And when you talk openly about it or ask them questions that would demand they talk openly about it, it can trigger those insecurities. I don't really have them. Like neither does my girlfriend. But there are people out there that do. And you got to be respectful of that.
Yes. Wealth equals worthiness.
It doesn't have to.
I agree. But that is the cognitive bias that's occurring for many people. Wealth equals worthiness. And it's on a scale. So if I have more than you, I'm worthy. If I have less than someone else, I'm unworthy. And so where am I in that pecking order? And it causes tremendous discomfort to many people.
Like the astrophysicist who discovered a new celestial object and published it this year and got like an award for astronomy. Like this person to me has prestige and clout, not some dude or woman who dragged numbers around on a screen and now they're a billionaire. Like to me, like your worth is not, sure, maybe a little, but your worth is much more in your accomplishments than the dollars and cents in your bank account.
Yeah.
But not everyone sees the world that way. Most people don't.
I agree. To me, a person's worth is, are you just a decent person? Is there reciprocity in the relationship?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Well, if a decent person is your worth, then I'm not worth anything.
There's your bias.
Yeah, there is my bias indeed. Gary, what other things do people engage in violating others' boundaries without realizing it? There's got to be many more on this list.
Well, I'll tell you one of the big ones that I see.
Gary, do you know what I did today? Gary, I'm talking. Let me talk. Gary, you're not allowed to talk. I'm interrupting you. All right, fine. I was setting you up. It's people who interrupt too much and don't let you get a word in.
Okay, how many of the listeners also wanted to jump down your throat for doing that? It is so annoying. It is so frustrating. And you're right. We do have these folks who continually either want to interrupt or they just talk nonstop.
Yeah.
Or as you want to speak up or jump in, they'll talk louder and just continue. So it like, how do you manage that person?
The steamrolling.
The steamroller. That's where it takes some bold action. And in these circumstances, you may wind up, in a sense, inadvertently upsetting the person who's actually steamrolling you. Because these people, conversational narcissists, it's a term I heard from a fellow named David Cooper. Conversational narcissists, they think everything they say is golden.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you dare to interrupt them, they feel like they've been slighted. But there is a way to do it.
Please.
And you may actually have to raise your hand as in to motion stop. You may have to call their name as you're doing that. David.
Gary.
And with my hand up, I have your attention. I don't know if you realize this, but I haven't been able to get a word in edgewise. And there were some things that I wanted to say too. Can I have a turn yet?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to do it. And sometimes you'll find yourself talking to people and it just feels like they're waiting to speak. Like there's two modes. There's speaking and then waiting to speak, which is not listening. It's not the same thing.
No. When you're waiting to speak, you're rehearsing what you have to say or want to say versus listening to what the other person is saying. And you don't need to be, you can say, excuse me, I don't mean for this to be offensive. I haven't been able to get a word in edgewise.
I would love to, I would love to have someone say that to me. That would be if I were someone, and I probably am, someone who steamrolls others, just says what I want, talks over them, whatever. For someone to just put up their hand and say, David, I haven't been able to speak for 10 minutes. I feel like that'd be a real wake-up call for me. You're doing the person who's steamrolling you, who's talking over you, who's being a conversational narcissist. You're kind of doing them a favor. You're giving them a teaching moment right there.
Yes. Excuse me. I need a turn. There was something you said a minute ago that I want to speak to, and I need to do it now.
Wow. Have you ever done that with someone?
Yes. I've done that. Look, we all have those friends.
Yeah.
We all have those friends who just take over a conversation, and they're not pleasant to be around, even if they're nice people, because there is no space for the other. So the onus is on you to create your own space, and that's okay.
I couldn't agree more.
Boundary setting, when we set boundaries, it doesn't mean the person with whom we're setting those boundaries likes it, but we have to.
Gary, I got to interrupt. Gary, we are out of time. Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Gary is a social worker and therapist. What a pleasure it was talking about boundary violations that people may not realize they're doing with you. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Love it, David. Take care.
After the break, I'm sure you've reflected on your life and thought, wow, I wish I could give myself in the past advice. Well, we're kind of doing that. We're taking advice from yesterday that we recorded and playing it on the show today. So if you've got advice for your tomorrow self, because we don't have a time machine yet, give us a call and record that advice and participate in the last show. The number coming up in just a few moments. God, I love when we do advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday today. Up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
Advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, or maybe from today for tomorrow. If you're confused, you're not alone. This is what happens on the last show with David Cooper and Tony Five.
A little public service announcement. We are working on the technology to get advice from our future to be played today. But for now, the technology that Tony Five, foreign correspondent, and I have is advice from our yesterday's self, as recorded by ourselves, to be played today. It's a very simple concept. We'll see if we followed our advice. Tony, welcome in, my friend.
David, my friend, life is wonderful. I am thinking.
That's it? That's all you have to say? You're thinking?
Yeah, that's it, my friend. Content, baby. Content.
All right, here's some advice from yourself yesterday. And for anyone who thinks they might have advice for their future selves, all they have to do is call the show at 1-888-505-6644. That's 1-888-888-505-6644. Record some advice. We'll play it tomorrow, and it'll be advice from your yesterday self today, but tomorrow will be today. Tony, here's your advice.
Hello, Tony, mate. Your advice for today, for tomorrow, for yesterday, that you're going to play tomorrow for yesterday, today, is be happy for the day. Be grateful for the day. It's one I haven't done. But actually waking up and seeing things go okay. Don't think of when it's going to go bad, which is what you do, but just be grateful for the day. All right? Cheers, fella. Yeah. Must buy some bread later. Yeah. And cheese. Bread and cheese. I feel like a prisoner today. Anyway, bye.
You've been having a few bad days, and I think people can relate to that, like a period of several bad days. And I always tell you when you come to the show or that we talk on the phone and you're like, today's a great day. I'm like, write it down in your brain. You have a notepad in your brain, and remember, Wednesday, July the 9th was a good day. So that
when was that?
That is today, Tony.
Oh, right, sorry. I thought, how do you know what happened last year? Okay, right. And then I realized it's today. Brilliant.
But take stock on a good day so that when you have those days where you lose your imagination for what a good day could be like, you have the evidence. It's like, okay, the other day was a good day. I remember that I thought that. I will think it again. That's my advice to you in the future from today.
I mean, that sounds wonderful, doesn't it, really, when you think about it?
Great content.
Yeah. I mean, it's content first, my friend. No, in all fairness, yeah, I do have this thing where, I think, I'm having a good day. I am a positive person overall, but then I think, but it's only going to be a matter of time till I have a bad day, which is true as well, right? Because it is a roller coaster. Life is a roller coaster, and it does go up and down and left and right. So, yeah, but yesterday, the advice for today was, I did have a good day. The weather's nice. Frank's good. I bought him a new house. He's loving life, my little friend. Oh, my God.
That's your dog, for anyone. You don't just keep a prisoner in your house named Frank.
No, Ellen got him a house. No. So he's good. I built it today. The weather's okay. Took some time for myself. Shaved my head. So it's really shiny at the moment, isn't it? Can you see it?
I can see it. How about this? The next time you're having a day, you tell yourself, it's only a matter of time until I have a good day. Why can't you say that when things are down? Why can't you tell yourself when things are not looking good, when your outlook is lousy, when you're feeling pessimistic, tell yourself, it's only a matter of time until I have a good day?
I mean, that's a pet peeve of mine, is when people say, when you're having this, do that. And I think...
Try it! I'm not saying you have to believe it, but just say the words.
Because when I'm like that, I'm so far removed from... not reality, but from any kind of self-help, self-talk, self-anything. I mean...
But you're not, because you're giving yourself negative self-talk. I feel like you're defending your right to have a bad day when you're saying you won't even try it.
No, it's like now, it's very difficult to say, right, when I am well and happy and everything's going positively and I'm well, I can't imagine, think, see... even remember what I'm like being ill. And I don't know what it's like for other people. And it depends on their severity of mental health problems. And also, when I'm ill, I cannot, which is the common thing, I can't see any time being positive. I mean, anything.
That's why you should journal what it's like to have a good day and then just read it. Then you don't need the imagination. You're just like reading through it.
But I can't comprehend.
But you're not even trying, is what I'm saying.
But I have journaled. I've got a picture of you and I've gone things are better days and stuff. And I have looked at that. When you've said to me and I've been ill, okay, just think of when, or listen, you actually said, listen to something that was funny when we did it together and we laughed, or somebody else said that. I think it was even my mum.
I didn't say that. That's good advice, though. That's good advice.
Because it never happened. My mum said, I think it was my mum now I think about it. She said, why don't you listen to she doesn't really understand the concept of podcasts. She said, why don't you get David to send you a podcast? I said, Mum, it's in the air. It's in the cloud. We can listen to it. She goes, yeah, but he can send you there. And I said, no, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, but it's sunny today. What are you talking about, cloud?
Yeah. So she said, okay, well, listen to one where you were laughing and everything was good and you'll remember what you were like. And I sort of went, yeah, but I can't. And that you're right. So that is the talking myself out of it. I completely agree, right?
You can try. I believe that you can try to listen.
Okay, wait, let me finish. And then when she went on too much, I said, okay, I will try, which I did do. So I went onto Spotify and I listened to a random something with Tony 5 and I couldn't recognize my voice. I couldn't recognize where I was. So I did try, but the comprehension just wasn't there.
You can try, and you did, and you might have better results, but at least it's something you're doing in an attempt to take care of yourself rather than defending like your right to have a bad day, basically. Defending your right to just, these things don't work for me, so I'm not going to try them. You can try, and I'm glad you did. That's all I'm saying.
Right. I guess so. I know you're one of these people. You will always find like a thing to push, and I get that. But I kind of, maybe because it's happened and it's been deep, I have that feeling of, I don't know, not helplessness, maybe, I guess it's very difficult, but you've gone through it, so you know as well.
I don't push you when you're feeling depressed, by the way. I'm pushing you now when you're having a good day. I'm saying the things I want to say, but I know better than to like push you into trying all these things. Instead, I just offer non-judgmental support.
But I wouldn't say you're pushing me. I think you're challenging me, which is good. Pushing me is like really negative connotation in my mind. I think you're challenging me, which is good, and I respond better to that. And it's what I would say to somebody, like just try, and if you fail, then try again. It's what Winnie the Pooh said. And if you imagine, Winnie the Pooh was a fantastic philosopher.
And he smelled terrible. All right, here's my advice from my yesterday self for today. Hi, David. It's your past self from yesterday. You missed a friend's birthday who you wanted to call or at least text. So the next time you realize a friend's birthday is coming, use the scheduled send feature on your phone. Most phones have it. Most people don't realize this. You can just schedule a text to go out the next day or the next week. You can use that and people will think you're a thoughtful person. Never miss a birthday again. Yeah, isn't that amazing?
How do you do that? This is an amazing thing.
It's in the send features for iPhone. Android has it. You can basically
BlackBerry?
I think so. And what is that? The Motorola flip phone? Yeah, Nokia. Rotary telephone, telegraph.
Yes, pigeon.
No, I'm just saying, let's say it's Tuesday and your friend's birthday's on Thursday. Get a text ready being like, happy birthday, I love you. And then just set it to send on Thursday. It's an amazing feature. My girlfriend just showed me it, and I am never going to miss a birthday that I remembered early again.
I didn't know that thing existed. I'm actually staring at my phone thinking that's an amazing thing to do. You can schedule everything for everybody. Shall I tell you what I would do? I'm going to schedule something in the future, like what I think might happen in the future. So for example, next year, I'll schedule something for next week saying Barack Obama will be president.
We got Nostradamus over here. Yeah, I know this is such a mundane thing, but this has made my life so much better. If it's 2 a.m. and I remember something, I'm like, I got to send this person a message, but I can't send them a message at 2. I schedule it for the next morning. It works great for birthdays, anniversaries, makes you a more thoughtful person. And Tony, that is my advice.
David, do you know what? That's finally one of the advices that I'm going to actually use. Thank you very much. I'll schedule a goodbye for tomorrow.
After 10 years of working with you, we finally hit something that's useful for people. Tony, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Why are celebrities and young people flaunting creepy little monster dolls on their designer bags? After the break, meet Labubu, the bizarre, big-eared, tooth-fanged keychain craze that's turning heads. I do not understand young people. So if you've never heard of these things, details on what they are and why they're the hottest new status symbol in a few moments.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Hi, this is Javon, your Blinds.com design consultant.
Oh, wow. A real person.
Yep. I'm here to help with everything from selecting the perfect window treatments to...
Well, I've got a complicated project.
No problem. I can even help schedule a professional measure and install. We can also send you samples fast and free.
I just might have to do more.
Whatever you need.
So the first room we're looking at is for...
Shop Blinds.com now and save up to 40% site-wide. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
Your nightly rebellion against predictable radio and podcasts. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Are small luxuries, little things that corporations are just pushing you to buy right now, a sign of an economic recession? We are joined by amateur, unaccredited economist, Natalie Norman. Okay, maybe she's not those things, but she is a stand-up comedian based out of Toronto, Canada. Natalie, welcome in.
Thank you. And even though I am none of those things and just a comedian, I like to say I have a pulse. Is that what you say? A pulse on what's happening?
You know what's going on the streets?
Yeah, because I like to buy things.
I see. You are a consumer.
But like, I'm a top consumer.
Okay, well, it's Prime. They say it's Prime Day, but really it's Amazon Prime 4 days or however long it is. Are you splurging right now, or you got your pulse on the deals?
Well, first of all, no, because I am very broke. And I did that to myself. Can you imagine? I did that to myself. But you know what? Prime Day is like completely, once again, one of these recession indicators. Whenever I see something like Prime Day, I'm like, oh, so your company's doing poorly.
I don't think Amazon is doing poorly, Natalie.
But they're not doing as well as they would like, because why do they like all of a sudden need to push these products on us?
Yeah, and they know that we can't pay full price.
Exactly. So it's a trick.
Okay, there you have it. Amateur economist take, Natalie Norman. I want to talk to you about these like Hong Kong keychains that I know nothing about, but I'm hearing people talk about, Labubus.
Yeah, I knew you didn't know what they were, because no one has ever been like those Hong Kong keychains. Most people are like, I want to talk about Labubus.
I'm assuming people listening have no idea what this is. Am I the one who's crazy? Like, are they well known?
Well, Labubus are very well known to a certain sect of people, and those are people who are consumers. They are a younger generation, and the reason I know about Labubus is because I'm always on TikTok, and basically, I'll explain to you what a Labubu is. It is a character from a TV show. The creator mixed Belgium culture and Hong Kong culture together. I think that's what it is, but it is based off Belgium lore, these characters, and they're called monsters. And the show was created a while ago, and only recently has the ether become obsessed with this one character called Labubu. And it's an ugly monster, but ugly cute, and you can put them on your keychains. And it started, I saw a few months ago where like Prada, people were wearing Prada bags, Hermes, and like totems, like all these bags, and they had these ugly keychains, and I couldn't understand what was happening.
And now you know you want one.
And now, well, that's the thing. It worked on me, like slowly, like it's been a sign of luxury.
So wait, a celebrity just needs to carry a designer bag and an ugly keychain, and that's enough for you? You have that lack of a sense of self?
No. Okay, first of all, no one said celebrity.
Okay.
Let's not talk about celebrity because they were not included in this equation. I'm talking, it became a fashion trend, and that's enough for me to want it.
Well, I'm reading that like Dua Lipa, Rihanna, Kim Kardashian, all these celebs are wearing designer bags with Labubu keychains.
So that could be true, but for me, it's more so just the zeitgeist of it being shoved down my throat. Like everything I see is Labubu, Labubu, Labubu. And that's obviously my algorithm, but it's really worked on me. And to be honest, my boyfriend, he heard me talk about it so much that he said for my birthday, which was recently, he's taking me to a store. We're going to pick out a Labubu together.
Oh, God. That's the sign of the recession. I don't mean like economic. I mean like we're done as humanity.
Yes, but that's been long time coming. But no, that he thought it was a very cute idea. I said, you did not need to buy me a Labubu because I do think they're obviously a waste of money, but also they're cute. And it's a way, I think it's a form of escapism.
Wait, how much is this Beanie Baby looking thing that's the size of a keychain?
So it's a huge keychain, by the way. It's imagine taking a tall can and putting a keychain on it.
Oh, so it's not a keychain. This is like a.
It's a doll.
Yeah, a full-size doll, basically.
Attached, yes. So the Labubu can be anywhere from $29 to $700, depending on how rare your Labubu is.
You got to get this is reminding me of, what were those little things we played with in the 90s? Pogs. Yeah.
Well, I actually think Pogs, it reminds me of Beanie Babies. To me, this is like a very big recession indicator because it is known, it's like the lipstick effect, is when we're going into recession, people still want luxuries, but they're small and affordable. Obviously, a $600 Labubu is not worth it for anybody, in my opinion. But like a $30 one is, and they're cute, and it's also like, this one's like fantasy based. You get to escape. You get to be reminiscent of a child when money didn't matter.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's like how rare it is a marker of price, but they all kind of look the same. And so you can have whatever level of luxury you want. If you just want the dolly, you can get a $30 one and you got a Labubu, or you can take the $700 one. It's smart marketing.
No, what's even wilder is there was an article, I think it was in the New York Times, about how Lafufus, the knockoffs, are now just as valuable.
Yeah.
I know you don't like this.
I'm upset. Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell. This is the world we live in. So people started wearing Lafufus, and even those now are expensive.
Are they hard to get?
No, that's the weird thing about the Lafufus. Like where you live in New York, you can walk down the street and get like 5 Lafufus right now.
Okay, I'm busy that day. What day are we going? But you in Toronto, can you get them?
They're hard. They're hard. And I've seen like websites, like it's coming up in my algorithm, like the Showcase, like bought on TV. They're selling them. And I was like, oh, maybe they'll be cheap there. No, they're $89.
For a keychain that does nothing? It's also reminding me of what was that little, the Tamagotchi or Tamaguchi?
Don't even start. I'm desperate for a Tamagotchi.
Oh, I'll get you one. My girlfriend's little sister got me one for Christmas because she thought it would be funny. Although I don't think it was her joke. I think it was my girlfriend's joke because I don't think a 20-year-old girl would know what this thing is. It died. It died during Christmas.
I'm so sorry. But I think the important thing to remember about this is I get that you don't get it, but this is a form of escapism for a lot of people.
I get it.
That they might need. It's comforting. It's like a toy that you carry around with yourself. So safety and like we are going into unprecedented times where we're going to be broke, but at least we'll have the comfort of a Labubu.
The world was burning. The utility company shuts off our electricity. The landlord kicks you out of the apartment. But at least next to your handbag, you've got a Labubu.
Yeah. And what's more interesting is now people are getting their Labubus tattooed.
Oh my God. Please stop. I mean, in a way, don't stop. What?
No, it's wild. I get like people tattoo their Labubus. They put grills on their Labubus. They have clothing for Labubus. It's just a real sign that people are struggling. It's like how people get into astrology when times are hard. People need a form of escape.
I think it's a sign that I'm getting too old. And I don't know why you don't feel too old for this, because we're the same age.
I never feel old.
You never feel old.
It's rare that I feel that I'm not 18.
I look at 18-year-olds and I just don't understand certain things. And this is on the list of things. And that just makes me feel old. And I just turned 39. I could be 49 any minute now. I mean, mathematically, it's probably going to be 11 months. But still, I don't get it.
Well, I get it. I like to stay in touch. I think it's actually good for your mind to keep up with what's going around in the zeitgeist. I mean, I am a comedian. It is relevant to my life.
I mean, I'm a radio host, so maybe I got to get on the Labubu TikTok. Boo Talk, I guess, is what
Is it called Boo Talk?
I don't know. I just made that up now.
I kind of like Boo Talk, but I don't think it's Boo Talk.
No, that's probably people gushing about their significant others, their boos.
Their boos. But Labubu is my significant other. Move over my boyfriend.
Well, if anyone associated with Labubu is interested, comedian Natalie Norman, based out of Toronto, is looking for sponsorship, aren't you?
Sponsorship? Just send me a Labubu.
Just send her one, please.
Please. If you have a spare one, I would love it.
I once, when I used to do stand-up, got paid for a gig with a sandwich. It was a pretty good sandwich. I wonder if maybe that could be payment for a gig, a Labubu.
It could, because then you could sell it on Poshmark and get a big deal.
Get a big deal. Natalie, what a pleasure it was doing economic analysis of whether we're going into a recession in the most scholarly way. Natalie Norman, check her out online. Her social media handle is Stalking Natalie. That's STALKING. Did I get it right?
Yes.
Excellent. Natalie, thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up next, what happens when your grown adult kid moves back in and suddenly your retirement dreams are put on hold? After the break, we'll discuss parents spending thousands a month to support adult kids and the emotional drama that comes with it. Would you do it? Or would you just cut them off?
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Broadcasting from the neutral zone, where every perspective gets diplomatic immunity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
More young adults are moving back in with their parents, and it's taking a serious financial toll on them. Let's drill into one California couple who now spends $5,000 a month supporting their 27-year-old daughter, forcing them to delay retirement and even give up vacations. But there's emotional and financial struggles behind this growing trend. But I do wonder if supporting your adult children is a little too much. That is what we'll discuss with Kim Muench, a certified parent coach. Kim, welcome to the show.
David, super excited to be here with you to talk about this.
My parents were very kind to help out when I was at university, but the idea of taking cash for them and in doing so delaying their retirement, their ability to pay off their mortgage, this kind of stuff, sounds horrible to me. I don't know why any kid would let this happen to their parents unless they were in dire straits.
Unfortunately, it is happening all too often. Now, I'm not a financial planner, so I'm not going to tell you, how much it's affecting their retirement accounts and whatnot. But I will tell you that I specialize in working with parents of 20-somethings who are lost in place, I call it. And so they're coming back home, or maybe they didn't leave home, and they are financially putting a burden on the parents longer than we traditionally think, longer than you experience, going to university, your parents support, through that, and then you're kind of on your own, right? Well, that is not happening, unfortunately, for a lot of young people, and their parents are paying the price for it.
Let's get into this one couple. $5,000 a month. What 27-year-old needs $5,000? I guess unless they're living here in New York where I live. But beyond that, what 27-year-old needs $5,000 to support their lifestyle?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I have 5 adult children myself, and this is not how I would set things up. I try not to be judgmental about the people that come to me for help. But the point is, I think it is in part her medical care, her living arrangements, a lifestyle that she is used to.
I get that. So how common is this really? Like, how common are kids in their late 20s moving back home, taken from the nest?
To give you an idea, David, I did a video on, the topic was stay-at-home sons. That's a new term. And it hit almost 1 million views on Instagram. And my calendar, I had 7 consultations yesterday. I had 4 on Sunday, and today I have 5 of them. Like, it is unbelievable, the people coming out of the walls. And again, I'm not saying here that every one of them is delaying retirement. I am saying that they are struggling with, in particular, young adult males who are not launching.
Yeah. My older brother, who's almost 50 now, he got chucked out of the house at like 27, 28. And had my parents not have, with a heavy hand said, hey, you got to move out, he might even still be there with his wife and kids, I got to say. So I've seen this firsthand. But yeah, I've never seen it beyond my brother, I guess.
Okay, well, I'm not a statistician, so again, I'm not going to speak to it. I can just tell you that I have a full calendar, and the bulk of the parents that I work with have emerging adults who have mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and they're kind of feeling hopeless and opting out of life. They don't want to work as hard as their parents did. They don't want that part of it. Some of them will go so far as to say, I've had messages from young people that have said, my parents brought me into the world. It's their responsibility to financially fund me my entire life.
I guess I didn't ask to be born, but beyond that, I just don't know that. I don't know that you're your children's keeper well into their 20s, 30s.
Yes, that's the mentality.
What do you advise parents who find themselves in this situation?
Well, first, I go take them through a process. It's like, let's look at their day-to-day life. What are they capable of? I mean, because it's one thing if you have someone who's in a mental health crisis that is, going through something, and
sure,
and you got to respect that for sure. But it's another thing if you just have someone who is, they went to college, maybe they failed out, they don't really know what they want to do with their lives, and so they're kind of stuck at home. They're gaming, they're smoking weed, they're just kind of wasting time, and months become years. I mean, this is a totally different thing. So it's really talking with parents about, let's look at honestly, what are they capable of? And then what are you doing? How are you? And this is really what I work with parents on is, what is your part in this dysfunctional pattern? Because that's what we control.
Fair enough. A survey, I'm not sure how accurate it was, but I think it's a good talking point, say that nearly 40% of U.S. parents now say that their adult children are living at home, and it's impacting their savings. Let's talk about that. Should adult parents in their 60s, 70s, 50s really be eating into their savings to support their kids like this? Let's put mental health challenges aside. Let's talk more about these failed to launch kids. Should they be putting their ability to retire and their savings at risk here?
Absolutely not. I mean, as a mother of 5 adult children, many of whom are between 20 and 30 myself, absolutely not. We have to look at, there comes a point at which in your life, there's only so many years that you can work left, and you don't want to be a burden to your kids. And if your kids never launched and got a job, you can't even be a burden to them because they never launched.
When parents coddle their kids, they're actually not helping them. By not letting your kids sort of forcing them out of the nest, so to speak, they're not getting the skills of supporting themselves, and you're actually doing them and your future self a disservice. Is there something to be said for tough love here? I'm not talking about kicking out your 17-year-old, but I might be talking about kicking out your 27-year-old.
There is something to be there's something to say about adjusting what we have done as parents. Some Gen X parents have gone way too far on the other end of the spectrum in terms of empathy and validating feelings. I help parents come back to center. There needs to be structure. There needs to be boundaries. Parents need to have confidence and leadership. They've lost their confidence. They've gone way too far to the feely side of oh, my kid is, they're defining their kids by 1 or 2 aspects instead of looking at those as part of the whole person and pushing that whole person you need to go. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, I hear that, the world is a terrible place and that it's going to be hard, but you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah. And you can be empathetic and understanding without enabling, and you can set boundaries. I can say, I know things are tough for you. I'm always here to discuss it, but I'm not going to enable this.
Right. And that is a lot of what I do. It's just, sometimes parents, they don't want their kids to go through difficult things, but they don't understand that it's in the difficult things where people build grit and resilience and ability to move forward. That is exactly where they get it from. And if you keep taking it away from them by making everything okay and rescuing them and making sure nothing, bad happens to them, they don't learn that.
Is there a deeper fear here in some parents that they fear their child will never become financially independent and they just don't know what to do?
100%. And back to your tough love comment, some parents are very concerned that if they push the envelope, their kids will cut them off, because we all know that that's a trend or that's a thing that's happening. So they are afraid to push too hard because they're afraid their kid will not have a relationship with them at all.
Interesting. Or withhold grandchildren. I mean, that's, I feel like, the biggest fear of any parent.
Yes. I mean, these are real fears for parents. And I would say, I don't like to use inflammatory language, but in the fact that I'm as busy as I am tells me this is an epidemic, David.
No, I think that's fair. Well, Kim Muench is a certified parent coach. Kim, thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Welp, that is the show. Thank you so much for tuning into it. Do not forget that the last show is available as a podcast. If you didn't catch the whole program or you're going to miss us on a given night, subscribe. Also, just subscribe anyway. Head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com, and there you can find out details on how to subscribe. I am David Cooper, and this is, well, I've always said it's not the first show. We'll be back tomorrow night.
Big Brother is back.
Let's freaking go!
This summer, the game gets hotter, the alliances get trickier, and the blind sides, brutal.
Just a roller coaster of backstabbing and craziness.
New house guests, new twists, same epic drama.
Bro, I'm gunning for you. You're my #1 target.
Who can you trust when everyone's watching?
Game on, baby.
Big Brother. New season Thursday, July 10th on Global. Stream on Stack TV.